The morning sun painted the military shooting range in shades of gold and amber. Dust particles danced in the light as soldiers lined up along the firing positions. The air smelled of gun oil and determination. This was no ordinary training day at the National Defense Academy. Today marked the annual long-range precision shooting competition, an event that separated the exceptional from the merely good. Captain Rahman stood behind the firing line, his weathered face showing years of experience. He had seen thousands of recruits come through these grounds. Some showed promise, others washed out quickly. But competitions like these revealed the true marksmen, the ones with steady hands and sharper minds. The target stood at an intimidating 4,200 meters away, barely visible even through high-powered scopes. Most soldiers considered hitting anything beyond 3,000 meters a matter of luck as much as skill. The competition had drawn participants from 5 different military academies across the region. Young men in crisp uniforms checked their rifles repeatedly, adjusting scopes and calculating wind speed. Confidence radiated from most of them. They had trained for months, some for years. Their instructors had praised their abilities. Several had already won medals in shorter-range competitions. They believed this day would add another achievement to their records. Among the crowd stood Zara Ahmed, a slight figure in an oversized uniform that seemed borrowed rather than fitted. At 19, she looked younger than her years. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple bun, and her face showed none of the cocky assurance that marked the other competitors. She carried her rifle with practiced ease, but her quiet demeanor made her nearly invisible in the sea of boastful young soldiers. Zara had not planned to be here. In fact, her presence at the competition was the result of a bureaucratic error. Her academy had registered her name along with the male cadets, not realizing the long-range competition had traditionally been a male-only event. By the time the mistake was discovered, the registration deadline had passed. The officials had argued for hours about whether to allow her participation. Finally, more to avoid paperwork than from any sense of fairness, they had decided to let her compete. The other cadets had laughed when they saw her name on the roster. Long-range shooting required immense physical strength to handle the recoil of powerful rifles. It demanded hours of remaining perfectly still in uncomfortable positions. The mathematics involved in calculating bullet drop, wind drift, and atmospheric conditions were complex. Most of all, it required a certain mental toughness that many believed women simply did not possess. Zara had heard all the whispers. She had seen the smirks and knowing looks. Her own academy instructors had taken her aside the day before, suggesting she withdraw to avoid embarrassment. They meant well, they said. Why subject herself to inevitable failure in front of so many people? Better to focus on areas where she had shown actual competence, like tactical communications or medical training. But Zara had grown up on a small farm in the northern mountains. Her father had been a hunter, and she had learned to shoot before she learned to read. The mountains taught lessons that firing ranges could not. She understood wind by feeling it on her skin, not just reading numbers from instruments. She knew how temperature affected bullet trajectory because she had tracked deer through winter storms and summer heat. The rifle felt natural in her hands, an extension of her body rather than a foreign tool. The competition began with great fanfare. A military band played patriotic songs while generals and politicians took their seats in the viewing area. Television crews set up cameras to broadcast the event. This was more than just a shooting competition. It represented national pride, military excellence, and the strength of the country's defense forces. The winners would be celebrated as heroes, their photographs appearing in newspapers and on recruitment posters. The first shooter stepped up to the firing line. Lieutenant Farhan was the favorite to win. He had scored perfect marks in his academy's qualifying rounds. His father was a decorated general, and rumors suggested Farhan had access to private coaching from retired Special Forces snipers. He settled into position with the confidence of someone who had never experienced real failure. The crowd fell silent as he took aim. The first shot echoed across the range. Everyone waited for the spotter's call. Miss, 3 meters left, 2 meters low. Farhan's face showed surprise but not concern. Wind must have shifted. He made adjustments and fired again. Miss, 2 meters right, 1 meter high. Now frustration crept into his expression. The third shot missed as well, passing above the target. After 12 attempts, Farhan stood up without having scored a single hit. His face had turned red, and he avoided looking at the crowd as he returned to the waiting area. The pattern continued with disturbing consistency. Shooter after shooter failed to hit the distant target. These were not beginners. They were the top marksmen from their respective academies, young men who had outperformed hundreds of their peers to earn their place here. Yet the 4,200-meter target proved too much. Wind conditions kept changing. The morning sun created heat shimmer that distorted vision through the scopes. The pressure of competition affected their normally steady hands. Captain Rahman watched with growing concern. 12 shooters had now failed completely. The competition was becoming an embarrassment. Foreign military observers sat in the stands taking notes. This was supposed to demonstrate the excellence of the National Military Training Program. Instead, it was revealing serious gaps in their long-range shooting curriculum. Something needed to change, and quickly. During a brief pause, Captain Rahman consulted with the other range officers. They spoke in low voices, glancing occasionally at the remaining competitors. The situation was delicate. They could not simply cancel the competition, not with all these dignitaries and cameras present. But allowing it to continue as a parade of failures served no one's interests. They needed someone to hit the target, to salvage some pride from this disaster. Captain Rahman stepped forward, his voice cutting through the nervous chatter of the crowd. We've had 12 attempts with no hits. This target is clearly more challenging than anticipated. He paused, scanning the faces before him. Let me ask a direct question. Are there any actual snipers here? Anyone with real long-range experience, not just range qualifications? The question hung in the air like smoke. It was almost insulting to the competitors. They had come here with credentials and certificates. They had medals and commendations. But Captain Rahman was asking about real experience, the kind that came from actual field work rather than controlled range practice. Few of these young cadets could claim such experience. Most had never fired a shot outside of training exercises. In the uncomfortable silence that followed, Zara felt something shift inside her. She had not spoken up much during her time at the academy. She had learned that drawing attention to herself usually brought mockery rather than respect. But she had experience that these others lacked. She had spent years in the mountains, shooting at distances that made this range seem almost reasonable. Her targets had been living animals, not stationary boards. She had compensated for wind, rain, snow, and the thin air of high altitude. Her hand rose slowly, almost of its own accord. She immediately regretted the gesture. Every eye turned toward her. The surprise on the faces around her was almost comical. Some cadets laughed outright, unable to contain their amusement. A girl, claiming to be a sniper? This had to be a joke. Captain Rahman's expression remained neutral as he looked at her. State your name and experience. Zara's voice was steady despite her pounding heart. Cadet Zara Ahmed, sir. I grew up hunting in the Karakoram Mountains. I have experience with long-range shooting in variable conditions, distances up to 5,000 meters. The laughter grew louder. 5,000 meters? That was nearly impossible even for trained military snipers. The girl was clearly lying, trying to draw attention to herself. Several cadets made jokes loud enough for her to hear. One suggested she probably couldn't even spell Karakoram, let alone have hunted there. But Captain Rahman had spent enough time in those same mountains during his military career. He knew the region produced exceptional hunters. The terrain demanded it. He also noticed something in the girl's posture, the way she held her rifle. She had the relaxed confidence of someone truly comfortable with the weapon, not the stiff nervousness of range-trained shooters. Very well, he said, surprising everyone. Cadet Ahmed, you may attempt the target. The announcement created an uproar. Several cadets protested. This was supposed to be a serious military competition, not a circus act. Letting the girl shoot would make a mockery of the entire event. What would the foreign observers think? What would the media say? Captain Rahman raised his hand for silence. She is a registered competitor. She has as much right to attempt this target as anyone else, unless someone would like to officially lodge a complaint. He let the question hang there. No one wanted their name attached to an official complaint that would become part of the record. They settled for angry muttering and shaking heads. Zara walked to the firing line, her legs somehow steady despite the chaos in her mind. What had she done? She had put herself in the spotlight in the worst possible way. If she missed, and she probably would, she would become a laughingstock. The story would spread through every military academy in the country. That girl who thought she was a sniper. That girl who humiliated herself in front of generals and television cameras. She reached the firing position and knelt down. The rifle felt heavy in her hands, heavier than her father's old hunting rifle. It was a more powerful weapon, designed for military precision rather than hunting game. She would need to account for that difference in her calculations. The target seemed impossibly far away. Through the scope, she could barely make out its shape. The heat shimmer created a wavering effect that made accurate aiming nearly impossible. Wind flags along the range showed conditions were constantly shifting. This was not going to be an easy shot. In fact, it might be impossible. Zara closed her eyes for a moment, blocking out the crowd, the cameras, and the weight of expectation. She thought of her father, of early mornings in the mountains when the world was quiet except for the wind. She remembered his lessons about patience, about reading the land and sky. The mountains had taught her that shooting was not about forcing the shot, but about finding the moment when everything aligned. She opened her eyes and began her assessment. Wind speed at ground level, then estimating conditions at higher elevations where her bullet would travel. Temperature and humidity affecting air density. The angle of the sun creating thermal currents. The rotation of the Earth itself, subtle but real at this distance. All these factors had to be calculated, combined, and translated into tiny adjustments of her scope and position. The crowd had grown quiet, watching this unexpected development. Some still smirked, waiting for the inevitable failure. Others felt a strange tension, wondering if perhaps something unexpected might happen. Captain Rahman watched carefully, noticing how the girl took her time, making small adjustments with the confidence of experience rather than the hesitation of uncertainty. Zara's breathing slowed. Her heart rate dropped. The world narrowed to just her, the rifle, and that distant target. She could feel the wind on her face, taste dust in the air, hear the subtle sounds of the range. Everything else faded away. This was the moment her father had taught her about, when the shooter and the shot became one thing. Her finger touched the trigger, feeling its resistance. Not yet. The wind was shifting. She waited, patient as stone. Seconds passed. Then she felt it. That perfect moment when everything aligned. The wind steadied. The heat shimmer cleared for just an instant. Her heartbeat fell into the gap between breaths. She squeezed the trigger. The rifle's recoil pushed against Zara's shoulder with familiar force. The sound of the shot echoed across the range, then faded into expectant silence. Everyone's eyes turned toward the distant target. Spotters pressed their binoculars and high-powered scopes to their eyes. The seconds stretched out like hours. Zara remained in position, her breathing controlled. Her mind already analyzing what adjustments she might need for a second attempt. Then the radio crackled to life. The spotter's voice carried across the range speakers, clear and unmistakable. Hit, center mass, confirmed hit at 4,200 meters. For a moment, nobody moved. The announcement seemed impossible, like someone had made a mistake or played a prank. Then chaos erupted. People jumped to their feet. Voices rose in disbelief and excitement. Some cadets demanded verification, certain there had been an error. The spotters checked again, confirmed again. The target showed a clear hit, right in the scoring zone. Captain Rahman's face showed something rare, genuine surprise mixed with satisfaction. He had hoped the girl might save the competition from complete embarrassment, but he had not expected such a perfect shot. He raised his hand for silence, though it took several attempts before the crowd settled down enough to hear him. That is one confirmed hit. Cadet Ahmed, you may continue if you wish to attempt additional shots. Zara had not moved from her position. She barely registered the commotion around her. In her mind, she was already working through the next shot. The first one had given her valuable information. She now knew exactly how this rifle performed, how the bullet traveled through these specific conditions. The second shot would be more informed, more precise. She made tiny adjustments to her scope. The wind had shifted slightly since her first shot. The sun had climbed higher, changing the thermal patterns. She accounted for barrel heat, for the settling of dirt around her position, for a dozen other factors that most shooters never considered. Her father had taught her that every shot was unique, that copying the previous attempt was a path to failure. The crowd fell silent again as she prepared to fire. This time, they watched with different eyes. The mockery had vanished, replaced by intense curiosity. Who was this girl? Where had she learned to shoot like this? The foreign observers leaned forward in their seats, suddenly very interested. The television cameras zoomed in, capturing every detail. Zara found her moment and fired. The recoil, the sound, the waiting, then the radio confirmation. Hit, upper center, second confirmed hit. Now the reaction was different. This was not luck. 2 consecutive hits at 4,200 meters was not coincidence. This was skill, real skill, the kind that even experienced military snipers struggled to achieve. The cadets, who had laughed earlier, now stood in stunned silence. Their instructors exchanged bewildered looks. This was not supposed to be possible. Zara adjusted her position slightly, easing the tension in muscles that had been perfectly still. She cycled the bolt, chambering another round. The rifle was speaking to her now, telling her its secrets through recoil and sound. She understood its language, could feel how it wanted to be held, how it responded to her touch. The third shot required a different calculation. The wind had picked up, gusting now rather than steady. This was more challenging. A gust at the wrong moment could push the bullet off course by meters. She needed to time it perfectly, to fire in the brief window between gusts when the air settled into temporary calm. She waited and waited. Some in the crowd began to fidget, wondering if she had lost her nerve. But Zara was not nervous. She was hunting, the way her father had taught her. A hunter learned patience above all else. The mountains rewarded those who could wait for the perfect moment and punished those who rushed. The wind flags fluttered, then dipped. The gust passed. She fired immediately. Hit, lower center, third confirmed hit. The crowd erupted again, louder this time. 3 perfect hits. This was entering the realm of the extraordinary. Even the cynics had to acknowledge what they were seeing. A general in the viewing stand turned to his aide and demanded to know why they had not recruited this girl for specialized sniper training earlier. The aide had no answer. Captain Rahman approached the firing line. "Cadet Ahmed, you have more than proven your point. You may stop if you wish." Zara looked up at him. For the first time, she smiled. It was a small smile, but it carried confidence and something else. Determination. "Sir, I would like to attempt one more shot." He nodded, understanding. She was not trying to show off. She was pushing herself, testing her own limits. This was what separated good shooters from great ones. The willingness to continue when they could have stopped safely, to risk failure after success. The fourth shot preparation took longer. Zara was feeling the strain now. Holding a firing position for this long took physical toll. Her muscles ached. Her eyes burned from staring through the scope. Sweat trickled down her back despite the morning cool. But these were familiar discomforts. She had endured worse during long hunts in the mountains, waiting hours for a single shot at an ibex or markhor. She studied the target through her scope, noting how the previous hits had damaged it slightly. The impacts had created small deformations that might affect how the material reacted to another strike. She adjusted her aim point accordingly, choosing a spot that would give the clearest indication of a hit. The mathematics of the shot ran through her mind like a familiar prayer. Distance, wind, temperature, humidity, Coriolis effect, spin drift, barrel wear from previous shots. Each factor added its own complexity. Most shooters used computers or detailed charts to manage all these variables. Zara did it instinctively, her brain processing information the way a musician reads music, seeing patterns rather than individual notes. She settled into the shot, letting her body relax into perfect stillness. This was the hardest part, maintaining that stillness despite fatigue. Her father used to make her hold positions until her muscles screamed, teaching her that physical discomfort was just noise, something to be acknowledged and ignored. The moment came. She recognized it instantly, that perfect alignment of all factors. Her finger moved on the trigger with practiced smoothness. The rifle fired. The bullet began its journey across 4,200 meters of air, spinning and dropping and drifting, according to physical laws as old as the universe itself. Hit. Dead center. Fourth confirmed hit at 4,200 meters. This time, the crowd's reaction transcended mere surprise. People were standing, some actually cheering. The foreign observers were writing furiously in their notebooks. Television producers were already planning how to feature this story. A young girl from nowhere had just accomplished something that elite military snipers would struggle to match. Zara finally stood up, her legs stiff from the long firing position. She safed her rifle with automatic precision, muscle memory from thousands of repetitions. Around her, the world seemed strangely loud and chaotic after the focused silence of shooting. People were talking, shouting, asking questions. She felt overwhelmed by the sudden attention. Captain Rahman stepped between her and the crowd. "Give the cadet some space. She needs to rest and hydrate." He guided her toward a tent set up for competitors. Someone handed her a bottle of water. She drank gratefully, only now realizing how dry her mouth had become. Other competitors filed past, their reactions mixed. Some offered congratulations with genuine respect. They recognized skill when they saw it, regardless of who possessed it. Others could barely contain their resentment. This girl had made them look incompetent. She had succeeded where they had failed, and in doing so, had challenged everything they believed about their own abilities. Lieutenant Farhan, the early favorite, stood at a distance watching. His face showed conflict, pride warring with embarrassment. He approached slowly, then stopped in front of Zara. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he extended his hand. "That was exceptional shooting. Where did you learn?" Zara shook his hand, appreciating the gesture. It took courage to offer respect after public failure. "My father taught me in the Karakoram Mountains. We hunted to feed our family." Farhan nodded slowly, understanding dawning. Range shooting and real-world shooting were different skills. He had been trained in controlled conditions, with calculators and support teams and perfect equipment. She had learned in chaos, with variable conditions and old equipment and the pressure of needing meat for survival. "Your father must be a remarkable teacher." "He was," Zara said quietly. "He died 3 years ago. Avalanche." The simple statement carried weight. Farhan nodded again, with deeper respect now. He understood loss. Every military family did. "He would be proud of you today." The judges were conferring, reviewing the rules and results. This situation had no precedent. The competition was supposed to continue until all registered shooters had attempted the target. But how could they continue after this? Anyone who shot after Zara would be compared unfavorably to her performance. The psychological pressure would be immense. Finally, one of the senior judges made an announcement. "Due to the exceptional performance we have just witnessed, and considering the challenging conditions, we are declaring this competition concluded. Cadet Zara Ahmed is the winner with 4 confirmed hits at 4,200 meters. This represents a new record for this competition." The announcement brought mixed reactions. Relief from some competitors who were glad to avoid further embarrassment. Anger from others who felt robbed of their chance. But mostly there was acceptance. What they had witnessed was not normal shooting. It was something beyond their experience. The award ceremony happened quickly. Officials wanted to move past the awkwardness of the situation. Zara stood on the highest platform, flanked by empty lower platforms where second and third place winners should have stood. A general she did not recognize placed a medal around her neck. Photographers captured the moment. Someone handed her a trophy, surprisingly heavy in her hands. She looked out at the assembled crowd, at the faces watching her. Some showed admiration, some showed envy, some showed calculation, already wondering how to use this for their own purposes. She felt suddenly tired, wanting nothing more than to return to her barracks and sleep. But the attention was only beginning. After the ceremony, she was escorted to a building where several high-ranking officers waited. They sat her down in a conference room, offered tea and snacks, then began asking questions. When had she started shooting? What was her training regimen? Had she ever received formal instruction? Would she be interested in specialized sniper training? Zara answered as best she could, but the questions felt strange. She had grown up shooting the way children in cities grew up playing football. It was not special or remarkable in her village. Every family hunted. Her skill was better than most perhaps, but not unique. Her father had been better. Her uncle was nearly as good. The mountains were full of people who could shoot at long distances because their survival sometimes depended on it. The officers seemed unsatisfied with her answers. They wanted to hear about secret training methods, about innovative techniques, about something they could document and teach to others. But Zara had no such secrets. She had learned by doing, by failing repeatedly until she succeeded. Her father's teaching method had been simple. Shoot until you hit, then shoot some more. Finally, a colonel leaned forward. Cadet Ahmed, what you demonstrated today is extremely valuable to our military. We would like to offer you a position in our Special Operations Sniper program. It would mean additional training, different assignment from your current track. This is not an order, but an invitation. What do you think? Zara hesitated. She had joined the military academy primarily because it offered education and career opportunities her rural village could not provide. She had no particular passion for military life. The structure chafed sometimes, the arbitrary rules and rigid hierarchy. But this offer represented something significant. Recognition of real skill rather than social connections or family name. May I have time to consider, sir? The colonel nodded. Of course. This is an important decision. Take a few days. Talk to your instructors and family if you wish. But do not take too long. Opportunities like this do not wait forever. They dismissed her finally. She walked out of the building into afternoon sunshine, surprised to find several hours had passed. The range was empty now, equipment being packed away. A worker was repairing the target she had hit, patching the holes her bullets had made. She stood there for a moment, looking at that distant target. 4 successful hits. It did not feel like a grand achievement. It felt like an ordinary day of shooting, the kind she had experienced hundreds of times growing up. Yet everyone treated it as something extraordinary. The disconnect puzzled her. A voice interrupted her thoughts. Quite a day you have had. She turned to find Captain Rahman approaching. He had changed out of his formal uniform into regular fatigues, looking more comfortable and somehow more human. Yes, sir. I was not certain you could do it, he admitted. But I thought you deserved the chance. Sometimes talent appears in unexpected places. You have been in the Karakoram, Zara said. It was not a question. She had heard it in how he talked about the mountains earlier, recognizing shared experience. 20 years ago, I spent 2 years at a border outpost, coldest, hardest 2 years of my life. But also the most real. He looked at the distant mountains visible beyond the range. The mountains teach lessons that no academy can replicate. My father said the same thing. Your father was wise. Captain Rahman was quiet for a moment. They will offer you many things now, promotions, special assignments, opportunities. Be careful which ones you accept. Not everyone who offers help has pure motives. I do not understand. You have become valuable, Cadet Ahmed. People will want to use that value for their own purposes. Some will genuinely want to help you develop your skills. Others will want to use you for political reasons, or for publicity, or to advance their own careers. Learn to tell the difference. The advice stayed with Zara as she returned to her barracks. Her roommates greeted her with a mixture of awe and awkwardness. They had watched the competition on a broadcast monitor. Now they did not know quite how to act around her. Was she still just another cadet? Or had she become something else? That night, sleep came slowly. Zara lay in her bunk, listening to the familiar sounds of the barracks. Distant voices, footsteps in corridors, the hum of ventilation systems. Her mind kept replaying the day, not with pride, but with a strange detachment. She had done something others considered remarkable, but to her it felt like simply being herself, doing what she had always done. The following days proved Captain Ramon's warning correct. Suddenly, everyone wanted something from her. Media requests flooded in, all denied by Academy policy, but creating pressure nonetheless. Politicians mentioned her name in speeches, using her achievement to praise their military policies. Marketing companies sent offers through official channels, wanting her to endorse products. Fellow cadets who had barely spoken to her before now sought her friendship. Her instructors treated her differently too. Some with new respect, others with resentment that she had succeeded where their favored students had failed. Her tactical training instructor began calling on her constantly in class, putting her on the spot. Her weapons maintenance instructor found fault with every detail of her equipment inspections. The message was clear: do not get too proud of yourself. But the most significant change came from the administration. 3 days after the competition, Zara was summoned to the Academy Commandant's office. She had never met Commandant General Mirza before. He was a distant figure who appeared at formal ceremonies and then disappeared back into administrative duties. His office reflected his status, large and well-appointed with military memorabilia covering the walls. Photographs showed him with various important people, shaking hands and receiving awards. Zara stood at attention, waiting as he finished reading something on his computer. Finally, he looked up. "Cadet Ahmed, please, sit down." His tone was friendly, which somehow made Zara more nervous than if he had been stern. "I have been reviewing your file. Your academic performance is adequate, not exceptional. Your physical fitness scores are above average. Your discipline record shows a few minor infractions, nothing serious. A fairly typical cadet, except for one extraordinary skill." "Yes, sir. I have received numerous communications about you this week. The Defense Ministry is interested. Special Operations Command is interested. Even our intelligence services have inquired. Everyone wants to know what we plan to do with you." He leaned back in his chair. "What do you think we should do with you, Cadet Ahmed?" The question surprised her. Officers typically did not ask cadets for opinions on such matters. "I think I should complete my standard training, sir. I still have 18 months remaining before graduation." A conservative answer, safe. But is it the right answer? He pulled up something on his computer screen. "Your marksmanship scores from regular training are good, but not outstanding. Do you know why?" Zara did know. The range training focused on rapid firing at multiple close targets, urban combat scenarios, standard military doctrine. She was competent at these tasks, but not exceptional. Her skills lay elsewhere, in the patient, precise, long-distance shooting that military training barely touched. "The standard curriculum does not emphasize long-range precision shooting, sir." "Exactly. We are training you for skills you already possess while neglecting to develop your actual gift. That seems wasteful, does it not?" He closed his computer. "The Special Operations Sniper program would allow you to focus on your strengths, advanced training with the best instructors and equipment in the country, deployment opportunities with elite units, a clear career path." "May I speak freely, sir?" "Please." "I did not join the military to be a sniper, sir. I joined to get education and opportunities my village could not provide. I want to learn about engineering, maybe communications technology. I want skills that will be useful after my service ends." Commandant Mirza nodded slowly. "An honest answer. You are not blinded by the glory of your achievement. That is good. But consider this. The Special Operations Program includes advanced technical training. Snipers must understand ballistics, meteorology, mathematics, even some engineering principles. You would receive that education plus specialized skills few people possess. And in return, what would the military expect from me? Direct questions. Good." He smiled, but his eyes remained calculating. "The military would expect you to deploy when and where needed. Special operations work can be dangerous, often in difficult conditions. You would face situations your standard training has not prepared you for. but you would also have the satisfaction of using your abilities at the highest level. Zara thought about her father, about why he had taught her to shoot, not for competition or warfare, but for survival and providing for family. Would he want her to become a military sniper? She thought probably not. But he had also taught her to recognize opportunities and to make her own decisions without relying on others to tell her what to do. May I have more time to consider, sir? You may. But Cadet Ahmed, understand something. What happened at that competition has changed things. You cannot return to being an anonymous cadet. People are watching now, both inside and outside this academy. The question is not whether you will be used, but how. Better to make that choice yourself than have it made for you. The words carried weight because they were true. Zara felt the change already. She could not walk across campus without drawing stares and whispers. Her privacy had evaporated. Whatever decision she made, it would be public and permanent. She was dismissed, leaving the office with more questions than answers. As she walked back to her barracks, she noticed a woman waiting near the entrance, civilian clothes but with the bearing of someone military-trained. As Zara approached, the woman stepped forward. Cadet Ahmed, my name is Sarah Chen. I work with military intelligence. Could we speak privately? This was getting complicated. Zara led her to a small courtyard where they could talk without being overheard. Sarah wasted no time with pleasantries. I will be direct. We have been studying the recording of your shots. The precision is remarkable, but what interests us more is your methodology. You made adjustments between shots that suggest an unusual ability to read environmental conditions. That skill has applications beyond simple marksmanship. What kind of applications? Intelligence gathering involves observation, pattern recognition, understanding complex systems. Your shooting suggests you possess these abilities naturally. We would like to assess whether they extend to other areas. You want to recruit me for intelligence work? We want to evaluate you. If you show aptitude, yes, we would offer training. Intelligence work is less dangerous than special operations combat roles, but intellectually more demanding. It would suit someone with your analytical mind. Zara felt overwhelmed. Too many offers, too many people wanting to direct her life. She needed space to think, to talk with someone who had no agenda. I appreciate the offer, but I need time. Of course, here is my contact information. But Cadet Ahmed, be aware that opportunities in intelligence work are rare. We do not make such offers often. If you decline, we likely will not ask again. After Sarah left, Zara went to find the one person who had helped her without asking for anything in return. Captain Rahman was in his office, reviewing training schedules. He looked up when she knocked, then waved her in. You look troubled. Let me guess. Too many people offering too many things? Yes, sir. I do not know how to decide. What does your instinct tell you? Zara considered. My instinct says to finish my standard training and avoid all of this attention. But Commandant Mirza said I cannot go back to being anonymous. He is right, but that does not mean you must rush into decisions. Take your time. Evaluate each offer carefully. And most importantly, decide what you want, not what others want from you. The Special Operations program would develop my shooting skills. Intelligence work would challenge my mind, but neither is what I originally planned. Plans change. Life is rarely linear. Captain Rahman opened a drawer and pulled out a photograph. It showed a much younger version of himself with a group of soldiers in mountain gear. This was taken during my time in the Karakoram. I joined the military planning to be a regular infantry officer. Instead, I spent years doing mountain reconnaissance. It was not what I planned, but it turned out to be the most important work of my career. Do you have regrets? Some. I missed my daughter's childhood because of deployments. My marriage suffered. But I also did work that mattered, using skills few others possessed. Life is about trade-offs, Cadet Ahmed. No choice is perfect. Zara returned to her barracks that evening still undecided. She found a package waiting on her bunk, delivered through official channels. Inside was a satellite phone and a note. Call home. You need to talk with your family. Captain Rahman. The gesture moved her. Rahman had recognized what she needed without being asked. She took the phone to the roof. a quiet place where cadets sometimes went for privacy. The stars were brilliant overhead, reminding her of nights in the mountains. She dialed her mother's number, heard the familiar voice answer. "Mama? It is Zara." Her mother's joy came through clearly despite the distance. They talked for nearly an hour. Zara explained everything that had happened, the competition, the offers, her confusion about what to do. Her mother listened without interrupting, the way she always had. Finally, her mother spoke. "Your father used to say that shooting was not about the gun or the target. It was about knowing yourself. Do you remember?" "Yes, I remember." "So what does your heart tell you? Not your head with all its calculations. Your heart?" Zara looked up at the stars, thinking. What did she want? Not what would impress others or what would advance a career, but what would make her feel she was living rightly. "I want to help people, Mama. I want my skills to mean something beyond medals and rankings." Then you have your answer. Choose the path that helps people, whichever that might be. After the call ended, Zara sat on the roof for a long time. The conversation had clarified something. She had been thinking about the offers as if they were prizes to be won or obligations to be fulfilled. But they were neither. They were simply tools, ways to direct her life toward purpose. The next morning, she requested meetings with the representatives from each program. She asked detailed questions about what each role actually entailed day to day. Special operations snipers spent months on deployments, living in harsh conditions, taking shots that ended lives. Intelligence analysts spent years behind desks, processing information, rarely seeing direct results of their work. Neither exactly appealed to her. But Captain Rahman had mentioned something that stuck with her. Mountain reconnaissance. Small teams operating in high-altitude terrain, gathering intelligence through observation, avoiding combat when possible. It combined physical challenges with intellectual demands, shooting skills with analytical thinking. She researched whether such units still existed. They did, though they operated quietly with little public profile. Their work involved monitoring border regions, tracking movements through difficult terrain, providing intelligence that kept conflicts from escalating. It was not glamorous, but it was important. She contacted Sarah Chen from intelligence and asked about these units. Sarah's response was immediate and enthusiastic. "Mountain reconnaissance teams are technically under intelligence command. We have been trying to improve their capabilities for years. Someone with your skills and mountain background would be invaluable." "Would I still get technical education? I want to learn about communication systems and satellite technology." "Absolutely. Modern reconnaissance depends heavily on technology. You would receive extensive training in various technical areas. This could actually be better than the sniper program for your long-term goals." Zara made her decision. She informed Commandant Mirza that she would accept assignment to mountain reconnaissance rather than the Special Operations Sniper program. He seemed surprised but not displeased. An unconventional choice. But then you are proving to be an unconventional cadet. Very well. The paperwork will be processed. You will complete this semester of standard training, then transfer to specialized training next term. The decision brought relief. She had chosen based on her own judgment rather than external pressure. Some of her fellow cadets thought she was foolish to turn down the prestigious sniper program. Others understood that she was following her own path. Lieutenant Farhan sought her out a few days later. Since the competition, he had been quiet, working harder than ever on his own training. "I heard about your decision. Mountain reconnaissance is solid work, not as celebrated as special operations, but important. That is why I chose it. I have been thinking about what you said, about learning to shoot in the mountains for survival." He looked uncomfortable. "I have trained my whole life to be a soldier, but I have never really been tested. Everything has been controlled environments and safety nets. You grew up with real consequences. That makes a difference." "Different backgrounds create different strengths," Zara said. "You have discipline and formal training that I lack. I have practical experience you have not needed. Neither is better, just different." He smiled at that, appreciating the diplomatic answer. "Perhaps. But that competition taught me that I have been overconfident. I need to work harder, learn differently. Would you be willing to share some of what you know about reading wind, estimating distances without instruments, that sort of thing. The request surprised her. It took humility for someone like Farhan to ask for help from someone he had initially dismissed. I would be happy to share, but honestly, much of what I do is instinct from years of practice. I'm not sure I can teach it easily. Then maybe just let me observe your practice sessions. Sometimes watching someone skilled is the best education. They began training together occasionally. Farhan proved a quick study, bringing his disciplined approach to learning the intuitive skills Zara possessed. Other cadets noticed, and some asked to join these informal sessions. Gradually, a small group formed, practicing long-range shooting techniques that the standard curriculum did not cover. Captain Rahman approved of this development. You are teaching. That is good. Skills shared multiply in value. Skills hoarded die with the person who holds them. The semester continued. Zara's shooting achievement gradually faded from immediate attention as other events occupied people's minds. She was glad for the decreased scrutiny, able to focus on her studies and training. The specialized reconnaissance program loomed in her future, both exciting and intimidating. One afternoon, a ceremony was called to honor various cadet achievements from the semester. Zara attended expecting nothing, having received her medal at the competition. But Commandant Mirza called her name for a different reason. Cadet Zara Ahmed demonstrated not only exceptional skill but also leadership in organizing informal training sessions for her fellow cadets. She has shared her knowledge freely, improving the overall capabilities of her class. This exemplifies the spirit of service we hope to instill in all our cadets. For this, we award her the Academy Leadership Citation. The applause felt more meaningful than at the competition. This recognition was for helping others, not just for personal achievement. It confirmed she had made the right choice about her future path. After the ceremony, her mother called using the satellite phone Zara had kept. I saw news reports about your award. Your father would have been so proud, my daughter. I miss him, Mama. I wish he could have seen this. He sees. And Zara, he would want you to know something. The shooting he taught you was never about killing. It was about providing, protecting, and understanding your place in the world. Whatever you do in the military, remember that. Your skill is a tool, not a definition of who you are. The words resonated deeply. Zara had been struggling with the idea of potentially using her shooting skills in combat, of taking human life. Her mother's reminder helped reframe it. The skill itself was neutral. How she chose to apply it would determine its morality. The final weeks of the semester passed quickly. Zara completed her exams successfully, her scores showing particular strength in technical subjects. The reconnaissance program would build on that foundation, teaching her to use advanced equipment and analytical methods. On the last day before the term break, Zara returned to the shooting range one final time. The facility was empty, all training concluded. She walked out to where she had taken those 4 remarkable shots. The target had been replaced, no evidence remaining of her achievement. She did not bring a rifle. She simply stood there, remembering. Not the crowd or the pressure or the attention, but the feeling of perfect focus. That moment when the shooter and the shot become one thing. Her father had taught her to find those moments, and she had found one when it mattered most. A sound made her turn. Captain Rahman approached, carrying 2 cups of tea. He handed her one. Thought I might find you here, saying goodbye? More like remembering. This is where everything changed. Do you regret it? All the complications that came from that day? Zara considered carefully. No, it was difficult, but it taught me things. About who I am and what I want. Without that day, I might have drifted through my service without purpose. Wisdom beyond your years. He sipped his tea. I will not be here when you return next term. I am transferring to a training position in the mountain regions, but I wanted to tell you something before I leave. What is that, sir? When I gave you the chance to shoot that day, I was not trying to save the competition or prove a point. I recognized something in you, a quality that reminded me of the best soldiers I have known. Not just skill, but character. The willingness to step forward when others step back. Whatever you do in your career, hold on to that quality. It is rarer and more valuable than any shooting skill. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the sun set behind the mountains. The same mountains that had shaped them both, teaching lessons no academy could replicate. Tomorrow, Zara would travel home for the break, back to her village and family. Then she would return to begin a new chapter, one she had chosen for herself. The shooting competition already felt distant, like something that happened to a different person. In a sense, it had. The girl who had raised her hand that morning was not quite the same as the young woman standing here now. Growth sometimes happened suddenly, triggered by unexpected moments that revealed hidden strengths. As darkness fell, Zara and Captain Rahman walked back toward the main buildings. Behind them, the range stood empty and silent. Tomorrow, other cadets would use it, pursuing their own paths to excellence. But tonight it belonged to memory, to the echo of 4 perfect shots that had changed one girl's life. The guard at the gate saluted as they passed. Lights glowed in barracks windows. Somewhere a group of cadets laughed, enjoying their last evening before the break. Normal sounds of military life, comforting in their familiarity. Zara smiled, feeling at peace with her decision. Her journey was just beginning. The reconnaissance training would be challenging, testing her in new ways. Deployments would take her to harsh environments and difficult situations. She would face failures and setbacks, moments of doubt and fear. But she would also have opportunities to use her skills meaningfully, to serve something larger than herself. Most importantly, she would do it on her own terms. Not because someone told her she should, or because it was expected, or because it would impress others. She would do it because she had looked within herself and found purpose there. Her father had taught her to shoot, but more than that, he had taught her to know her own mind. That lesson would serve her far better than any medal or award. As she prepared for sleep that night, Zara thought about the future with anticipation rather than anxiety. Whatever came next, she would face it the way she had faced that distant target, with patience, precision, and quiet confidence in her own abilities. The story of the brave girl who hit 4,200 meters would be told and retold, growing in the telling. Some versions would be accurate, others embellished. But the truth was simpler and more profound than any story. A young woman had been given a chance, had seized it despite mockery and doubt, and had proven that excellence can emerge from the most unexpected places. In the mountains where she learned to shoot, in the village where her family waited, in the academy where she trained, and in the future deployments that awaited her, that truth would remain constant. Skill combined with character, courage paired with humility, and the wisdom to choose one's own path rather than follow the expectations of others. These were the real lessons of that remarkable day at the shooting range, lessons that would shape not just Zara's career but her entire life.